But the lists thing, that's interesting that you chose to go with things like put together by physical people and not just an algorithm, because like a lot of companies like really have spoken very highly of how good their recommendation algorithm is. I mean, Spotify have been very sort of self-congratulatory at times about how good their algorithm is for recommending stuff. Now, personally, I find their Discover Weekly to generally be trash. I can't get around my head around how they can have so much information about the music I listen to and still pick such rubbish.
Yeah.
But why was there a conscious decision to choose people and not algorithms? Because surely you could save money on getting people on, or like just writing an algorithm and letting it go rather than having to employ people to be, creative and think of the list themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, to state the really I think what's sort of, um, confusing about books in a world of technology is it feels like books are text and technology is good at text, right? So if you can describe something in words, a search engine can usually help you find it. A couple of lives ago, I worked on a startup that was in the interior design space, and that's really hard. Like you look at a chair that you like at a restaurant, let's say, and putting that into words is really difficult. So I think a lot of people think, oh, books should be easy with technology. But the fact of the matter is that when you read a book, A, the algorithms are not reading the whole book, even though that is text. They're just not reading the whole book. And B, the algorithms are not tapping into what is being provoked in you in terms of emotions and mood. And that can't be replicated easily with a machine. So I think, I've spent a lot of time, my career has been in consumer internet technology. And it's just incredibly hard for algorithms to solve for taste and for mood. I think those are the two things that make it really difficult. If you're looking for, a piece of consumer electronics, certainly the criteria can be like boiled down to a table full of facts, and that the internet is and technology is great at that. But I have a certain taste, I'm in a certain mood for something, I've just seen a certain TV show. You can a bookshop is a magical place where you can walk in and say, I just watched the Queen's Gambit, I sort of feel like reading something that's a bit like that. I really love this other author. I've just finished all of the Ann Tylers, what can I read next? um, a human who is truly expert in books is uniquely able to do that. And so our job as a platform is to try to find ways to use technology to make that scale as scalable as you could, but not to take it out of the equation.
Hmm. I guess you could compare it in a way actually to the difference between a DJ and like an algorithmically generated playlist. Like it might be good, it might all work together, but a DJ is going to be far more skilled at picking the like
Reading the room.
yeah, and like what vibe is coming from the songs, and like maybe picking up on categories or genres that are like mixed in with the way something sounds that like an algorithm can't pick up on. I remember reading this great article on like a computer program. They were trying to get it to understand nostalgia. Like
Right.
um
Good luck.
so they had to like take all the words that they used for like any word that could be used like in a nostalgic way. They got someone to like write a story from their childhood, and it like picked out certain words that they had like identified as being nostalgic, and then depending on like just how nostalgic your story ended up being, it would generate this pink piece of like rose tinted like art that like drew something based on the words that you used in your story. And I remember thinking, it's like, I'd never really considered how difficult it must be to class certain words, like you or feelings or like styles of writing. Is like you said, like it's got to be almost impossible to get something that isn't like that can't like actually feel emotion yet. um,
Yeah.
that can like really truly understand like the way a the way a book makes you feel, or the type of writing that you enjoy, or I'm not even sure if they can code for sarcasm, like just at a very basic level.
Yeah, and part of me, again, I have huge respect for technology. I've spent my career in it, but part of me also asks, like, why? Why do we is our default to try to use technology to take humans out of the equation, where we could be using technology to lift up what humans are really great at, right, and make it more scalable and more available to other people. I think it's almost a matter of the lens that you look at it through. Like, I think we should be using technology in loads of ways, but perhaps the best way is to help these booksellers, bookseller who today only sees the footfall that comes to their store in their small town in England. What technology should be doing is giving them a bigger voice to sell more and a better um, variety and better connections to books.
Hmm.
And just also just understanding the, like, there's so many different ways into books, I think, is also the hard part about using technology alone to do this. So one list that our US site had that I thought was really incredible at the beginning of 2020 was a list of novels that featured key workers as the protagonists.
Okay.
And so yes, you could probably set a task to an algorithm to go find those books, but a human would have had to give the algorithm the brief for that to even be interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that so often the technology debate is like, is it good or is it bad? And I guess my philosophy is, let's figure out how to use it. I don't think we have to not use it, and I don't think we have to use it in every possible way. But we're the stewards of it, and we can use it to empower people rather than take them out.
Hmm. So why do you think physical books have survived? Because I remember like maybe 10, but some point between like 10 and 15 years ago, like Kindles started to appear on the scene. And I started to get like a little concerned because especially when I was a kid, I still do it now, but all my summer holidays are just lying in the sun reading or lying in the shade reading if it's too hot.
Mhm.
But I started to like I tried a Kindle and one of those e-readers, and I just hated it. I actually physically hated it. I was so just not happy with like trying to read off this screen. And I started to get real concerned that like books were going to start and disappear in the same way that like CDs have
Yeah,
disappeared,
yeah.
or in the same way like newspapers were disappearing then have just almost completely disappeared, or magazines or anything like that. Why do you think why do you think books have actually managed to like hold on in a way that those other sort of types of I don't know what you would call them, creative things have disappeared into the digital world?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if I know why there's such a big difference between books and music, for example, because some of the things I'm about to say about books probably could apply to music as well. But I think, make no mistake, ebooks are, play a role. There are lots of people who appreciate being able to get bigger size font, for example, or have access to books that aren't readily published in print. Um, so there's definitely some good things about it, but I think in a way the foray into ebooks was kind of from my as an outsider, as I said, not being from publishing, felt like an enormous distraction. I think people thought for a while that that was the technology investment that everybody needed to be making in the publishing world. Um, and yeah, it has really leveled off and turned out not to be as big a threat or as big an opportunity as people thought. And I think some of that is because, like, the books are really lovely to hold. The form factor actually really matters. They're also like great, as we've seen in this age of Zoom, they're actually like art in their own way on a shelf.
Hmm.
They actually make up a considerable amount of the interiors of people's homes. And I think there's, in a funny way, like, as you say, it's hard to control yourself if you love books from buying more, and some of that is because I think there's less guilt associated with that as an object to buy and to hold than so many other things in life today.
Mm.
Rightly so. um so I think all of those reasons mean that, you want to hold it, you want to show it on your shelf, you feel good about yourself for spending money on it. All those things make it, an object that has held on despite other forces.
Mm. That's an interesting thing that the guilt isn't there.
I mean, I maybe that's my focus group of one, but I certainly feel that way myself. It feels
Mm.
like it almost doesn't count in a way when you spend money on a book for so many reasons, because it's good for you, it's good for the publisher and author, hopefully it's good for the bookshop that you bought it from. it's, you know, making a world that you want to see.
I had not thought of it like that. That's not good. I should not consider myself to not feel guilty when I constantly break my rule of no more books till you finish the pile you've got.
Right.
Um, uh, but yeah, definitely, I don't feel guilty actually when I buy a book. I mean, I feel a little bit guilty, but that's only because I'm breaking my constantly self-imposed rule that I'm not allowed to
Right.
buy any more books.
Right.
Um, but so, do you think like books right now are more important than they have been maybe in the past like 30, 40 years? I feel like the thing with like newspapers and the kind of barriers to entry in media or opinion or anything like that has has kind of it's both fantastic in that we don't have the same gatekeepers of information that we used to, but on a totally flip side, that it's also not good because anyone with an internet connection can pose as a professional expert on basically anything. Um, and I think books almost provide you with like it's like look, if someone has managed to get this published, like a physical copy even more so, and someone has taken the time to like write and research this, there's like I like take it with more clout than I would reading something online or in a newspaper these days. Like, do you think books have become or will become like a more important way of like exploring ideas, given that most of the media seems to be more obsessed with like little 30-second bites, and a book is quite an expansive piece of work?
Yeah, and I think books are that's such an interesting question, and there's a lot in there. I think the other thing about books is that like so much of it is fiction, and that's a real plays a really important role in our lives. That you know, you certainly can read fiction online, make no mistake, but as you say, like a lot of it is oriented towards clickbaity, news oriented items. And a world where you spend more time in fiction, I think, is a world that is good for everyone's mental health and for their empathy and for exploring ideas in a way that isn't, you know, so literal and reactionary to what's going on in the world right this moment. I think it provides a really valuable perspective. And, you know, to state maybe the most obvious thing about books right this minute, maybe not the last 30 or 40 years, but over the last year, is it is, you know, an easily accessible, anybody who is stuck at home, as many as of us are, can enjoy it. It's just a very you know, for many people, affordable and accessible form of entertainment, in a world where we're not allowed to interact with each other face to face so much. So I think it's, you know, it's playing a really important role in the very immediate term. But I think fiction is so important to, you know, to children, to adults, in terms of exploring ideas and really reinforcing empathy.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast and to our mailing list. And don't forget, my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.